Hey guys, here we are doing another video. I have one here for Shubham Dole. Now, this was just a few hours ago, but one of my videos, which was how to transition easily from Excel to Tableau, tips and tricks. Basically, if you've never done Tableau before, and you've primarily used Excel, a lot of people, what they do is they go into Tableau, but they use it like Excel. So that video goes through just some tips on how to kind of mentally and philosophically transition in how you do designs. Because visualization of data through Tableau or business intelligence tools is very different from how you would do it in Excel. So I did a whole video on that. And Shubham is basically saying, how did you build those dashboards? So, seeing as how I just ate a nice big steak, I am all ready to film. So let me just get that dashboard for you. Here we go. So this was the dashboard. All right, so I'm probably not going to go through this one. I'm just going to show you how I built this. I'll show you how to build this, and maybe we'll do kind of some variations and chuck it in. I haven't really completely planned this whole thing, so we'll just kind of wing it and see how we go. All right, so I'm going to show you how to build this one first. Whenever I'm building a dashboard, right, one of the first things I do is just click on this View Data button, right? And this is the reason this is important is because a lot of the times the data sets that I'm given, I'm actually not familiar with. I'll work with a new team and they say, listen, we've got this information, can you visualize it? I'm like, all right. And you haven't got like 6 months to, figure out what it is. So I usually let the data dictate what I'm going to visualize, right? So you're not going to visualize a column of data that only has one entry. So I'll look at something that's interesting and I'll kind of go from there. So let's go ahead and click this, right? So when I look at this, I mean, it really is just a big chunk of data. I mean, you're probably not going to get anything this clean in the real world, right? A lot of the times when I'm given data, it's fragmented, it's got issues, it's got problems, some of the labels are a bit funky. But in this one, we're just going to focus on a few basic things. So what I'll do is, and a lot of the times I will just do, let me just get my notepad. I'll just do something like this. So let me just get Tableau, right? Let's bring this here. And I'll just take notes of like fields that are probably interesting. So category, city, straight away when you see cities and countries, straight away you know you're gonna get maps. So we'll say city, country, right? That's probably something interesting. Manufacturer, probably not so much. Maybe we can do like maybe a packed bubble. And the reason I say that, or a hierarchy map, is because see how many variations there are already? Whereas here there's a bit more commonality. Category doesn't seem to be that many variations. Now I'm kind of familiar with this data set because I use it a lot for training, right? Product name, all right, so again, maybe it's another packed bubble chart just to see how many products we have. Possibly a histogram showing, what's our most common products or how many products range from this price or something like that. North, days, okay, and then I've got some values in here. And probably the main ones when it comes to like finance or anything, it's usually how much have we sold, right? And how much profit are we? That kind of gets the conversation going. And then based on the meetings that you have, it'll be like, well, is it because of this? Is it because of this? And then you build onwards. All right. So from there, let's have a look. I already know I've got a map here. So I usually start with the biggest, and there's no kind of hard and fast rule of how you do this. It's really like let the data tell you what looks good, right? The rule I follow is if it's confusing and I can't really understand it in a few seconds, don't put it in because it's just too much. It's going to raise more questions than answers. So if I do something like this, and I put, let's say, sales in the color, it's like, okay, that's great, um, but does it tell me anything, right? If I'm the manager, it's like, what am I supposed to do with this if I see it, so maybe something simpler, right? So let's go maybe even country, let's say. And bubbles is kind of okay, like it just again depends. I like to use bubbles more for like density, right? To see if there's any concentrations. But because we're talking more about states and countries and all that and regions, this is probably enough. So we're gonna go and switch this to map, right? And then from there, we're gonna add a color. So probably sales. Okay, so that's one view. Maybe one thing you'd also want to see, like in terms of contrast, is profit in terms of color as well. Now I can build another sheet and do the same thing, or I can just duplicate this by holding control, right? So now I've got two of them, and I'm going to go into longitude, so I can actually click on this or click on this. Okay, so let's click on that. I really should count how many times I say okay, but all right, so sales, let's put in, and you don't need size anymore. Let's put in profit this time and drop. There we go. So here you've got like, you know, kind of a side by side. And when you start doing your filtering later, it'll come in handy. All right, we'll do something like this. Okay, I'm kind of happy with that. Let's do this first one. I'm going to change this to orange blue. Okay, there we go. So it's got its own scales. All right, so let's bring this in. Right now, once I start building the dashboard itself, I am not fussed where things are, right? Because by the time you size it and everything's going to shift. And as you add more things, it's going to change. I just put it in there to kind of give me a rough overall map of what I'm building. All right, so that's that one. What's the next thing we built? Profit by year. So that's pretty easy. We're just going to go order date, right? So I do that right click drag method, year, and I think that was profit, right? There we go, and bar. Now what I tend to do here is you don't need this label. So anything you don't need, just get rid of it, like it's useless. One of the other rules is if you have data labels, right? And data labels, I'm meaning these, right? You don't need an axis. So choose one or the other. I tend to get rid of the axis, mostly because if this gets higher, right? Let's go full view and get rid of the label, right? What value is this? Right? So you can hover, but sometimes you can't hover because, I don't know, it's printed or whatever it might be. So you have to look at this and go, right? And in my experience, a lot of the managers and people I work with don't like that. I personally don't like it either. So I just like to have the data label, get rid of this, and it actually makes it cleaner as well. And we add some color. Okay. I might want to do it by year, you know, something like that. Maybe we can do like a color scale. Maybe something like this, right? It's all up to you how you want to do it. Let's bring that back in here. Okay, so the other thing I would want to start considering straight away from this picture is this. If you use this for orange and you use this for orange, right? It can be a bit misleading because it's like, and this is straight up happened to me where people go, it's like, oh, is this just for this country? Right? So in that case, you just want to use completely separate colors for this, right? So let's try maybe, maybe not blue. We can do maybe gray. I rarely use gray, right? Something like that. Okay, maybe. And I do like dates with the expansion, right? Using the hierarchy. So I tend to do it like this, and then they can expand it if they want to, you know, get more detail. And that's automatic with dates, but you can create that for other things. So if you've never seen that before, maybe I'll do an example. Let's say I've got this hierarchy. Let's just get rid of this. Let's say I have category, subcategory, and product name, right? If I put, oops, hang on. If I put category here, right, there's no plus anywhere, and you're going to hear my dog crying. Subcategory, right? And we'll just put, let's say, quantity, right? There's no button or anything. So the way I can build this is there's two ways. I can get subcategory, drag it, and simply drop it on top of subcategory. Right? And there goes Henry sucking. And now that I've got that in there, what you'll notice is I've got this little minus button, right? Which will also now appear when I hover over here. But if you reverse this order, so the order actually makes a difference. Let's say I drag this on top, right? You'll see it disappears. So this is the actual hierarchy going this way. So you want to always start with the highest level. Same reason for it being region, country, state, city. You don't want to go in the other way because it doesn't make sense. Okay, so that's how you do hierarchies. We can get rid of that now. All right, there we go. And then the last thing we built was this subcategory office furniture technology. Okay, let's go ahead and build that. So I've got subcategory. Now, one of the other things you can do is if you're a beginner and you're like, well, how do I build this? One trick you can do is just think about all the elements you need for this. So in this one, there's only 3. This one, oh, hang on, let me draw that again. That was horrendous, right? You got this one, which is the category, right? You got these, which is the subcategory, and then you got the vertical values, which is the profit. So you only got 3 things. Now, if you don't know where to put them on, here's what you can do, right? Just double click each one to get them in and see how it looks, right? So category, subcategory, and profit, right? So from there, the only thing that's missing is the bar. So in that case, I just have to add that bar. Okay. Now, when you have it this way and you're like, oh, I want to go vertical, instead of going like this and moving everything, right, which can be a bit annoying, you can just press this button right here. All right, see if I can zoom in. Right, so this is the transpose tool. Basically, it just rotates. Well, I'll be less specific. I'll be less cryptic. It just swaps everything between these two. Right, that's all it does. So if I click on that, watch what happens. There we go. So now we have a vertical. I'm going to switch to this entire view, right? So the next thing we did was to add that color. Now this one, I think people get tripped up a little bit on how you do this part. If I take the profit, I can duplicate from here by holding control and drop it in here. But you'll see that there's a scale. So how do you get rid of the scale? Well, you go into color, right? You can go edit colors here, or I can double click on this legend, right? Which I usually do just out of habit. All right, so we got the coloring here. There's kind of 2 things you have to do. The first is you have to use this stepped color, right? So what step color does is when you look at the color right now, it's like a gradient. It's like all the colors of the rainbow, right? But and you can think of that as like a continuous spectrum of colors. But when you think of, if I was to ask you, what were the kind of discrete or specific colors for a rainbow, you'd be, red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and then little ones in between. That's what this stepped color thing does. It just breaks them up into like solid colors. So when I do this into 5, you'll see it's broken it up into 5 distinct colors, right? And you can change how many colors are actually in here. In our case, we're going to use 2. Right? I'm going to switch this to maybe just a kind of not so dark. Maybe we'll switch to like an orange, right? And this one not so dark again. Actually, I'll leave it as dark and I'll tell you why you won't put it as dark. All right, so that's the first thing, and we'll click apply. Let's see how it looks. Okay, that's pretty good. And the second thing I would do is click on this advanced tool. And what this advanced tool does is it controls the limit of the color range. Yeah, so you can see 67, 67. Usually it's just automatic. And the start and end, I rarely play with. What I'm interested in is the center, right? So that is when it changes from one color to the other when you have 2 steps. So we just want to make sure this is 0, right? Almost all the time it's 0, but again, depending on your data set, or if you see something funky, you're like, why are these values orange if they're positive? Just have a look at the center and see if that's what's causing the error. All right, so we're going to go apply. All right, which I've already done. Okay, I am not a fan of this color scheme. I'll tell you why. You want the visualization to attract attention in a very specific spot. When I first look at this, and the way you can test it is you close your eyes, and I'm doing it right now, right? Open them for like a split second and then close them again. And what do you remember? So if you open your eyes and the first thing you see is blue, it means that is overwhelming the attention, right? But that's not where I want the person to look. So whenever you want someone to not look at something, switch it to gray, right? Because gray is very bland and boring and nobody really looks at it, right? So if I go apply, right, you do the same exercise. When I close my eyes, look, and then close again. I can sort of see the orange, but not well enough. So let's make this a lot more aggressive, right? So now if I do this, okay, and what I'm also going to do is I'm going to get rid of the labels in this case, okay? I'm going to get rid of this as well, right? There we go, and we'll make this a little bit higher, right? Now I wouldn't worry about formatting this too much. A lot of the formatting I do is once it gets onto a dashboard because of the scaling, right? So now let's do that test again. I'm going to close my eyes, open it, close it. And if I remember the red, right, it's like imprint, it means it is drawing attention, right? It's doing its job. All right, let's bring this in. So sheet 22, I think I had it organized sort of like this, right? Let's get rid of this. I usually get rid of most of this, but in this case, because we did the two, one thing I'll do is move this scale to this side and this one to this side. So the way you can do it is click on the triangle and go floating, right? You can see now I can move it around, right? So I think this one was sales. Or I can hold shift, grab the handle, and that converts it to a floating, right? Neat little trick. You can get rid of this, right? And then we're going to maximize this. So what I usually go for is like 1500 by 900. Mostly because a lot of the systems we use at my work, that ratio fits really well on the monitors, right? So I'll move that. All right, so this is looking good. We'll build that. So now we're going to do a bit of cleanup, right? And one of the things I always do is add a spacing in between them, okay? And the reason is it just looks so cramped, right? So I take these blanks, right, and I put it in between each one. And you'll notice, even though a lot of times you won't notice it's there, it does make a difference. Let's add that in there. Add that in there. Right, that's the first thing. Then I'll add a dashboard title, right? What else would I change? I'm probably going to get rid of this background. See, it's not adding anything to my visualization, right? All these things. So we can get rid of it. All right, so let's click here. I'm going to go map layers. All right, now I can never remember which one's which, so I usually just add and remove whatever I don't need. Okay, do that. Okay, that gets rid of that. We'll probably leave that in. Okay. Oh, not terrain. I usually add coastline. Probably don't need it. Okay, light. And then I'll add like just a hint of washout. And what you'll notice is the more I wash it out, your brain can still see it. Your brain knows it's there. Although I think it's because like it can probably fill the information, right? It knows that there's other parts there. So you don't really need to chuck it in someone's face that, you know, there's something there. Just enough. And then we're just going to move it up, right? So I hold shift and move this up to get it scaled correctly. And I think we also had questions at the bottom. So let's grab text, drop it here. And I usually just do that for the moment, just as a filler. Okay, there we go. Profit, we can go here. Sales, we can go here, right? We probably should have some labels on the top of these. So let's go, which I cannot because it is the longitude, right? So, or latitude, one of them. So instead we'll use these. So I'm going to bring this down and we'll double click on this. Just make it center. Center. What we'll do is we'll just put this up here. All right. Okay. And this one as well. Something like that. All right. I'll probably zoom in a bit. All right. For some reason it keeps resetting. Right. Okay, that's probably a good zoom. So what we'll do is we'll just space this out. All right, maybe. It's weird that you can't go kind of in between those two clicks. All right, we'll go like that. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, you know what? Maybe we can do that. And what I'll do is I'll just reduce this. All right. We'll make this a little bit smaller. So 10. All right. So that's kind of why it's nice to have everything in here, and then you kind of just tweak it as you go along. And I want to change the font of this. So we're going to go Format Legend. I'm going to change the body to, let's say, 9. Oh, there we go. That's easier. All right. Center justified. Center justified. All right. Maybe we'll put this down here. Okay. There we go. I think it's maybe like that is good. Okay. right? Now, if you have a situation where you can't add titles in, what we'll do is we'll go profit and sales left and profit right by country. Okay, we'll go here. And for the title, let's say profit analysis, right? And I tend to go 22 bold in the middle. And then to modify each of the headings, a neat little trick is if you go format workbook, you go straight to worksheet titles. I'm going to switch this to 12, and that will change all of them. We'll go bold, and maybe we'll give it this color. Okay, that way you don't have to format every single one. In here, we'll add some research questions. Oops. All right, and I think we'll copy the other one. So we'll go 12, bold, I think it was this color, right? And then we'll just have 1, whatever it was, 2, 3, 4. Okay, like so. Something like that. Now, if you want to add some titles here that aren't here, you can add this text. So if you bring this in like that, it's going to start tiling. So you can hold shift and it will automatically make it a floating. All right, so we can just call this sales. Let's make this 11 bold. 11 bold. I'll just have to remember that. Okay. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll call this profit. Let's go 11 bold, whatever this color is. All right. Okay, now how does this look? I would like to maybe make this capitals. Sales, profit. All right, maybe something like that to stand out. And maybe we'll put a light border around it. So the way you would put a light border is once you've selected it, go into layout, background, set this to white. And that is so that when you overlap something, you can still see it, right? Because people are going to be most likely moving the map around. And then for the border, we don't want anything super strong like black, right? Because it takes, again, takes too much attention. You just want there enough that maybe they'll notice it. So let's say that one, still a bit too dark. Maybe this middle one. See, that's enough. So it's not competing too much for attention. We'll do the same thing here. All right. And the thing is, you can always change it. One of the things I tell a lot of people I design for is like, listen, we're just going to prototype something for you and chuck something together. You tell us honestly what you like, what you hate, what you don't, you know, like what you want to change, what's missing. All right, we'll get rid of these vertical grid lines. So right click, columns, or let's switch the grid lines to off. All right, so again, you don't need that. All right, let's give this profit by year. Oh. Okay, and we'll go profit by category and subcategory. And okay. Right, and that is pretty much it. Oh, I suppose the last thing is just turning on the filters. Right. There we go. So that's how I built that first one. So what we'll do next is build this one, the analyst one. Now this one's actually pretty fun. It's pretty fun to make a lot of the time, and the reason is because like you can just chuck in a bunch of stuff. It doesn't necessarily need to have a story behind it because you're really just building a tool for someone. All right, so let's get started. I'm just gonna hide these so it's like one less thing to look at. Blue. All right, so what are we looking at here? Let me see. Filters, filters. So subcategory, we got a histogram, maybe a pie chart, profit over time. So let me show you how I build this, especially if I'm meeting a client for the first time. So let's say they go, you know, Jed, we just want a quick dashboard to kind of see what things are going to look like. The best experience you can give to someone, especially if you're trying to sell them on the idea of Tableau, is to show them how quick you can develop solutions, right? And I like to think ahead. So for example, this is the easiest one to make. So I'll go ahead and build that straight away. And we can go category, subcategory, profit, and I duplicate from here. And I've got my colors. And then that's it. I'm not going to do any more than that because I'm just trying to tick boxes of, okay, built next, built next. All right, let's do the pie chart. I think that was the shipping. So I'll take ship status, double click. And the way I like to do pie charts, I'll show you. I think I did it on sales. So double click. As soon as I've got those two, that's the minimum you need for a pie chart. I'll go show me and straight into the pie. You can do it manually, but I found that this actually takes longer and it does get, if you miss a step, it gets kind of confusing. So this one I was like, okay, this works every time. I'm great. So from here, the next step I do is go entire view. This is specifically for pie charts. The main reason I go entire view is because once you start adding labels, it all gets squashed and gets kind of annoying. So I'll go entire view, right? So it's a good size. And then I'll duplicate ship status into label, right? And then duplicate sum of sales into label. And the reason I like to do it from here is because every now and then, you know, you've had too much to eat for lunch or you lapse in concentration and you accidentally put something else instead of sales. Let's say you grabbed sales forecast in here, right? And if I block this, you won't even know you made a mistake. So that's why I like to grab from here, just as a little tip, to ensure that the sizing you're seeing is basically is exactly what you're going to use for the display of figures, right? Go like that. Now to get the percentage, here's how I do it. So I'll add the first one by duplicating, and then I'll straight away do the percentage, right? Because if I add this again, right, it actually won't add. The reason is because it already thinks it's already in there. So you have to change this first. So if I go in here, quick table, percent of total, right? And then duplicate it again. So now I've got the three elements I'm interested in, and these are pretty much always the ones I put on pie charts. From here, I'm not going to order this here, which you can, but I don't do it from here, right? Because I have to do formatting on it anyway. So instead, what I do is I go straight into label, click on these three dots, and here's how I'd format. So the title is going to be first, right? So let's make this bold. The percentage I usually put in brackets, and then I make it red, right, to make it look different from the rest. And then the whole thing, center justified, and we'll go apply. And if you ever want to see what it looks like, you can always press this preview button. It gives you an idea of what it's going to look like. And go OK. The next thing is, a lot of the times I don't do two decimal places. So let's format this. Percentage. Drop it down. And there we go. Nice round numbers because it's really easy to, it just rolls off the tongue. 50%. Right? So that's the pie chart. We'll just call this pie. Let's call this sub cat and cat. Right? And this one's empty. Okay. The next thing is, what's this? Profit over time is really easy. So again, we're only thinking two elements, profit and time. The way I like to do it is I always start, and I don't know why, I just do. I always start with the date, right? So I right click, drag the date, right? And if I'm doing a line chart that I want to fit in this space, right? I always start with continuous, right? And what this does for me is it just tells me how much data exists. So each of these is like a little Gantt chart of information, right? And I can kind of show you how that looks. So if I start breaking this up, if I go year, right? Okay. See, they're actually individual little lines, right? And when I look at it this way, I can see, okay, the data is completely full. Every now and then I'll get a field where someone says, oh, you know, like we made all our purchases using this date field. And then you're like, okay, no worries. You go about, you know, doing the visualization and everything. And then you do it. And there's only like, you know, that many records, like let's say 20 records for a data set with 10,000 rows in it. So straight away there's a problem. And it tells me, okay, look, before I do anything else, there's already an issue. So no point trying to do anything further than that. All right, let's go profit. Profit. Where is it? Profit here. Right, straight away. And one thing I'll change, like, I always start with the highest granularity, which is simply exact date. If this is like not really showing me anything, then I'll start reducing it. So I'll go day, right? Let's go week. Okay, this is sort of giving me something. Maybe one thing I'll change is do a moving average here. And the way I like to do it is we duplicate this sum of profit, right? I right click this one, moving average, there we go. And I can right click edit and change how many days, right? So let's say we do it for 30 days, right? I can do it that way or undo. You can, as a quick way, just double click this and switch this to 30 days. So this is your trailing moving average and this is your leading moving average, right? So we go like this. We're going to dual axis, so we overlay them. We're going to synchronize, right, like so. We're going to adjust these colors. Assign palette. There we go. Okay, now that they're synchronized, I can get rid of one of these. Okay, and then the last step is I go back to this blue one, right, which is this one, right? Color, and then just reduce this. Because really what I'm trying to show the reader is, hey, have a look at this moving average, right? That's more important. And then the underlying granular data is kind of just for context if they need it, right? And that's it. All right, so this is profit time. All right, let's go back. Scatter plot is, oh man, I don't know, I just like doing scatter plots. Let me show you how we do this. So whenever you see something like this, don't let it overwhelm you. It's always made up of just a few simple parts, right? So let's start with the scatter plot itself. Whenever you do a scatter plot, you only need two measures, right? This one and this one, right? So let's go into here. And the way I like to do it is in kind of like 3 or 4 steps. First, I pick one of the measures. So in our case, it's quantity, right? And you're going to get an aggregated value straight away. Great, no problem. And then we're going to do profit, right? And what you're going to end up with is just a simple dot because it's the aggregate of one to the other, right? I think in our example, we had this switched around, so we can just use our transpose tool. There we go. And then what we want to do is like, how do we want to split this up? Do we want to see these as individual products? Do we want to see them as shipments? Do we want to see them as countries? Whatever you want to see, right? Let's say I want to see it by city. So I grab city and I drop it into this one, detail, right? And that's going to split it up by individual countries. So if I add a label, see each of the countries, right? Let's do that again. Let's say you wanted to see subcategory, just drop it into detail, right? And it will break it up by detail, right? That's how you do it. I think in this case, it was product line. So let's look for product line, maybe product name, drop into detail, right? I don't think it's quite the same one, but that's all right. That'll do. And then the last thing we have to do is add the region, right? So we go region, and we simply add it to the columns. So now we've got them split up. Maybe one thing we'll do is we'll add some color here. Maybe for something else, let's say sales, just to keep it fun. Sales into color. Let's add some contrast. Maybe we'll do, ooh, you know what we do? We do sunrise, sunset. I don't think I've ever shown you guys that. So if you apply this, you get a whole range of colors, which is pretty cool, right? And then we'll add size here. So you start seeing some pretty cool stuff, right? And just to kind of help you guys with the visualization, let's exclude these. This is just so we can spread the data. Oh, that looks cool. That looks pretty cool. For no other reason than just to see that. And you know what? Let's swap these around. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, that looks like sound. Oh, that looks cool. That could be like a thumbnail. That's pretty cool. Let's leave it like that. Let's call this scatter, right? So we've almost got every single element. The only one we need now is the histogram. I know a lot of people struggle with histograms as well. I used to struggle with them a lot. You can do them in like 2 steps. Which I think it's 2 steps or 3 steps or something like that. The way I like to do it is you always start with the measure. Okay, so let's say I had, let me just save this. Histograms, in my experience, like I tend to use them for anything where there's a lot of variations, right? So for example, category, I'm not really going to do any histograms on that. I'm most likely going to do it for something like product name, where you got heaps of products and you want to kind of group them in a single, like, compact visualization. So I can say how many of these unique products had $50 in sales, right? So let's say, let's do that again. So let's say I want to do a histogram for, yeah, let's do quantity, right? Let's go create, and we're going to go bins. So that's step number one. We have to create the bins. Now, if you don't know what bins are, what they're doing is if you have a whole range of values, let's say if I add this up, right? And let's say we were going to do it for product line. Let's add that in. And I'm going to go entire view just to squash them all up, right? If I order this, there we go. And we create the bins for every, I'll keep this simple. Let's say for every 50. Let's go tick marks, fixed. Let's go 50, right? There we go. What I'm trying to do is go for all of these ones, right? Oh, geez, it's so hard. I wish I had a square. Is there a square here? There is a square. Hang on. Let me switch this to square. There we go. So I can actually create a group here, right? That ranges from, that has over 100. So that's going to be 100 to 150. Then the next group is going to be from 100 to 50. And then the last group is going to be that. What bins does is it sets this grouping of every 50 or every 20 and every 10, and that's what will help you with the histogram. Okay. All right, let's go back. Let's get rid of all that. Let's go to quantity, create. I'm going to add bins. All right. Now at the beginning, I tend to just leave it as is unless it's a super funny value, right? In this case, I'll just round it up to 2. Oh, no, 22. All right, let's go. And then, so we now have the bin. I double click this. All right, so now I have my bins. And now you want to count whatever falls into those bins. In our case, it's product name. So I can right click this and go count how many products fall into those groups. There we go. All right, so let's rotate this. Let me just check something. Yep. All right. So in this case, and again, this is dependent on your data. If you're looking to count the unique products, so let's say here, right? You can see this comes up multiple times. Well, then you just use a standard count, right? Because let's say every line is an order, whereas sometimes it's just the way the data is stored in the system and you're only interested in unique. In that case, you want to switch this to count distinct, right? To see how many unique values you have. So what does this tell me? The range for this is from 0 to 2. Oh, geez, what happened to my drawing tool? Hang on. Let's go freehand. All right, so 0 to 2, 2 to 4, right? 4 to 6, 6 through 8, and so on, right? So what this tells me is there's 750 line items that have a quantity between 0 and 2, right? This gives me much more information compared to a whole long list of that I have to scroll through. Number one, it doesn't really give much insight, and number two, for the person reading it, it doesn't give them any value and might actually just frustrate them, right? So I tend to shy away from that. So we do this. What else are we missing? Yeah, we added some color, right? So we just add some color. There we go. I'm not gonna get too fussed on that. So let's call this histogram. Oops. Right, bring that all together. Right. So again, what I'll do is I usually just double click and bring everything in. Right. And then anything I'm missing, I think this thing needs to be rotated from memory. Okay. All right. So what I'll do is I'll get rid of this. Don't really need it a lot of the times. Let's space this out, get the ratios right. Let's say 900. Right. And then we'll start moving things. So I think the scatter was there. Actually, this is pretty good. We just need to move the histogram this way. Reduce this pie chart. Make this entire view. All right, space this out a little bit. That's entire view, and so on. And then we'll just go through the same exercise we went through before, which was adding the blanks. All right, like so. We'll add one here in the middle and one in between. And I'll just reduce them all the way to the maximum. All the way like so. Okay, think this one needs to be a lot higher, like so, something like that. Add a dashboard title. Let's call this profit analysis for the analyst deep dive tool. Okay, right. You probably center justify a lot of these, right? You can change the labels as you wish. There we go, right? I'll probably get rid of these data labels. Don't need them in this case, right? Nice and clean. I'll get rid of this label. Don't need this label. A lot of the times, if you're probably not going to call it histogram. Let's say you go histogram number of product lines by quantity, right? So here you're probably going to relabel this. So double click. Let's call this count of product line, close, right? So you can do those like little tweaks. So in the interest of not making this video way too long, I think that was the last one. And maybe this one I'll do really quickly for you. But that's kind of like your finished product somewhat. And if I wasn't kind of like talking and stuff, you can probably build this in like 10 minutes with data that you're probably not that familiar with, right? Again, giving your clients a very good experience. All right, let's build the last one. So in this last one, it was, you got 2 visualizations and a bunch of filters. Here's a little trick that can help you build things like ultra fast, right? Let me show you. So let's make this a certain color. What you want to start off with, like if you want to build something that's kind of simple, not too many different measures or counts. Let's say I have sales, let's say I have profit, something like that. Category, subcategory, right? You start off with something basic like this. And basically this is kind of my core visualization. I'm going to add things on top of it. Things like a breakdown of the same values by year, a breakdown of the same values by region, then maybe by segment, right? So let's say just those, and maybe ship mode, right? What I'll do is I'll build the first one and I'll add some colors in. So let's say like so, right? I do that. Then what I do is I duplicate, get rid of these two, right? And put my next thing in. So let's say segment, right? Duplicate again, get rid of segment, put in, let's say region, all right? Maybe we'll make this country. Duplicate again, get rid of these two, all right? See what I'm doing? Let's say we do ship status this time, and maybe we'll do that. So now we've got 4 visualizations, super quick. Let's go dashboard, let's add these 4 in. All right. And now you've got kind of at least a foundation of visualizations that you can have a quick conversation with a client about pretty quickly. And from here, I can just tweak things. So maybe that's using up a bit of space. So I'll put them side by side, maybe. So I can grab profit, drop it here, and this creates a dual axis. Maybe we'll move the measured names to color so we can tell the difference, right? I can do the same thing for this one, moving profit here. Add measure names to color, right? So we got that. They don't take up much room, so we can leave it like this. We can make this kind of our focus, and we can reduce this by region, add your dashboard, add your spacing, and you are pretty much done. I mean, that's how quick you can really build once you start learning the secrets and you know where kind of the buttons are, I guess. Right, and I like to kind of make that, let's make that in the middle roughly. Right, you got your dashboard, do a little bit of cleaning, a little bit of editing, but you're pretty much done, right? So that's how quickly you can build dashboards. So we're gonna cut it there. This again video was dedicated to, let me find him, to Shubham. So I hope Shubham you enjoyed this video. This one was just for you. And if you guys have any other ideas, or if you have particular topics that maybe you're interested in, or the areas that you guys work in that you want to see visualizations on, please leave a comment and we'll talk, get in touch. Maybe if you want to send me some data that I can play with and visualize for you, happy to do that. So until then, hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.